A grim outlook from the International Monetary Fund in its latest global forecast. The world body has reduced its estimates for economic growth in 2022 and sees further cooling next year. Citing the war in Ukraine and high inflation, the IMF has not changed its modest 3.2% international forecast for 2022. However, the Eurozone will barely escape recession with a 0.5% rise in 2023, while China's will increase a mere 4.4%. The IMF panel said the worst effects remain to be seen.
The 2023 slowdown will be broad-based, with countries accounting for a third of the global economy expected to contract this year or next. The three largest economies, the United States, China, and the euro area, will continue to stall. In short, the worst is yet to come, and for many people, 2023 will feel like a recession.
At the start of this year, global economies were struggling to recover from the pandemic, largely due to supply problems and rising energy prices. Those costs exploded with the war in Ukraine, which has had an almost immediate impact on consumer prices and sent inflation soaring to heights not seen in decades. Euronews correspondent Sasha Vakalina has more.
The three largest economies, the United States, China and the euro area, will continue to stall. The International Monetary Fund issued a stark warning, and it has cut the global growth forecast from 3.2% in 2022 to 2.7% next year. Joining me to discuss it is Petya Koeva-Brooks, Deputy Director at the Research Department at the IMF. The International Monetary Fund says risks to the outlook remain unusually large and to the downside. What are the most significant risks to the euro area economy?
The most significant risk for the euro area economy is that we see a further escalation of the forces that are driving the downgrade in its forecast, namely worsening of the energy crisis and having inflation be even longer lasting, which would prompt further tightening of policies and eventually make their outlook in 2023 even worse.
Let's focus a little bit more on inflation. The euro area annual inflation is a track at 10% in September 2022. The IMF warns that inflation pressures are proving broader and more persistent than anticipated, despite the economic slowdown. Do you think central banks, and specifically the ECB, are they on the right course?
Yes, we think that central banks are on the right course, and our message is stay the course. Tackling the inflation problem is really the most important priority right now. And proceeding with this monetary tightening is what's going to solve the inflation problem. Otherwise, it would be even worse going forward, which would require even more tightening down the road.
Well, on average, across Europe, commodity prices contributed massively in the rise of the headline inflation. And here, the IMF warns against energy price caps. Why and what are the alternative solutions, specifically when it comes to the situation already now, this winter?
Yeah, so our main message here is that what's important is to have support that is targeted to the most vulnerable. What we would not like to see is a fiscal support that is too generalized and would undercut what monetary policy is trying to do in terms of tackling inflation. And the other thing to keep in mind is that very general measures that don't preserve the price signal make it very hard for the adjustment, for the needed adjustment in the economy to happen to these higher prices. Because after all, this is not a shock that is going away anytime soon. And, you know, this winter is tough, but perhaps the winter of 2023 is going to be even worse. So that adjustment, we would like to see that happen as well.